No one talks about it, but it's a problem that affects millions of men around the world. You see it in your friends, in your colleagues, even in yourself. Something is not right, and even if we don't know how to name it, that something is present, growing in silence. Men are suffering, and they are doing it in silence, trapped in a culture that tells them that admitting it is a weakness. This suffering is not always visible. It does not carry a label that says, "Help me." It's something that builds up bit by bit. It starts with a sense of dissatisfaction, moves on to an exhaustion that never goes away, and can end in a disconnect so great that even the things you used to care about start to lose their meaning. Sound familiar? Have you ever felt like something just doesn't fit, but you don't know how to explain it? This video not only seeks to put words to that feeling, but also to find solutions so you can break out of this vicious cycle and start living more fully. From an early age, we are taught a definition of masculinity that is based on strength, on self-sufficiency, on the idea that a man does not need help because he can handle anything. Being strong, we are told, means not crying, not complaining, not showing signs of vulnerability. This lesson, repeated at home, at school, in the media, molds us and traps us. How many times, as a child, were you told to tough it out as a man? That seemingly harmless little phrase hides a much deeper message. Don't show your emotions. Don't ask for help, because that's not what a man does. The result is generation after generation of men carrying an invisible weight, a constant expectation to live up to an impossible ideal. This pressure is wearing us down and getting us nowhere. The cost of this conditioning is enormous, both emotionally and physically. According to recent studies by the World Health Organization, men have significantly higher rates of suicide than women, and emotional isolation is one of the main factors contributing to this alarming statistic. It's not just men who are physically alone, but men who, although surrounded by friends, family, or partners, feel disconnected because they don't know how to express how they really feel. That disconnection doesn't happen overnight. It is a slow, almost imperceptible process that begins with small decisions. Not talking about what bothers you, avoiding asking for help, choosing to ignore your own emotions for fear of appearing weak. Over time, that isolation becomes a wall that seems impossible to break down. But here's the truth. That wall is not as solid as it seems. Behind it is a space for understanding, for connection, and it all starts with the simple act of taking the first step and opening up. Added to this is physical and mental exhaustion, a direct consequence of living in a world that rewards productivity over well-being. How many times have you felt that you can't take a break because there's too much to do? We live in a culture that glorifies being busy as if our worth as men is directly related to what we produce. But this mentality is dangerous. Ignoring signs of burnout, whether physical or mental, not only takes us away from our goals, it also puts our health at risk. Studies have shown that chronic stress, lack of sleep, and constant pressure to perform are directly linked to serious illnesses such as hypertension, heart problems, and even mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety. And the most troubling thing is that many of us accept this lifestyle as normal. We tell ourselves that it's part of being a man, when in reality it's a cycle we can break. The disconnect between body and mind is another reason why so many men feel trapped. When we neglect our body, we are also neglecting our mind. Something as basic as poor nutrition, lack of exercise, or insufficient sleep can have devastating effects on our emotional health. For example, A University of California study found that people who exercise regularly are not only less likely to suffer from depression, but also feel better able to handle daily stress. But here's the problem. For many men, taking care of their bodies is not high on the priority list. We focus so much on our responsibilities, on meeting the expectations of others, that we forget the most important thing:
Targets inside.
taking care of ourselves. You don't need to be a professional athlete or spend hours in the gym to start noticing a change. Sometimes, something as simple as walking 15 minutes a day or practicing a little stretching can be enough to start reconnecting with your body and, therefore, your mind. Last but not least, there is the issue of fear of asking for help.
Online.
It is perhaps the biggest obstacle we face as men.
We've taken the
We
lead.
mistakenly believe that to ask for help is to admit
Changing
that we
mag.
have failed. We cling to the idea that we must be self-sufficient, that no one can solve our problems except ourselves. But this fear is
Enemy
isolating us
Target
and,
down.
in many cases, destroying us. According to a Harvard study, men who seek emotional or professional support have better outcomes in terms of
Headshot.
overall well-being and mental health.
We've taken
Think
the
of
lead.
it this way. If you break a bone, you don't hesitate to go to the doctor. So why do we hesitate to seek help when something is not right emotionally? Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of courage. Talking to someone, whether it's a friend, family member, or therapist, can be the first step out of this cycle of suffering in silence. You don't have to carry everything alone.
Targets inside.
No one should. The most important thing I want you to take away from this video is that you are not alone. Suffering in silence may seem like a burden that only you are carrying, but there are millions of men
We've
facing
taken the lead.
similar struggles. What we need is a change in narrative, a new way of understanding what it means to be a man. It's not about ignoring our emotions or carrying everything without complaint. It's about being brave, facing our struggles with honesty, connecting with others, and giving ourselves permission
Enemy
to
contact.
take care of ourselves.
Friendly
If you
airstrike
identify
incoming.
with anything we've talked about today, I want to invite you to take the first step, whatever it may be. Talk to someone, take a moment for yourself, get help if you need it. The important thing to know is that you don't have to do it alone. Let me end with a question.
We've taken the lead.
What do you think is the hardest thing about being a man in our society? I would love to read your answer in the comments. This is a space to open up, to support each other, and to start changing the way we live our lives together. And before you go, subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about the issues that really matter, the conversations we need to have,
Target down.
because your well-being matters, and together we can make a difference.
Enemy contact.
See you in the next video.
Reloading. Cover me.